You're listening to Big World Network.
Everyone Dies at the End, Episode 1. Written by Riley Amos Westbrook and Sarah Lynn Westbrook. Read by Rizayana. Jadi scratched her arm, feeling the itch in her veins that begged her to inject herself with tar. She'd used her last little bit earlier, and now she waited impatiently for Earl to get back from the dealers. She sat on the stairs, trying unsuccessfully to calm herself. The state of the house was pathetic. Trash lined the floors, as well as messes from animals no one had bothered to clean. The smell was sour and rotting, full of death and decay. Jadi jumped from the stairs when Earl charged into the house. She crashed into him before stepping back to give him some room. "Did you get any?" she asked, her hands all but shaking with anticipation. "Of course I did, but I only got a little bit." He pushed her away, trying to make his way to the living room. "But he didn't really give me enough to share." She shoved him, sending him off balance. The junkie landed at the bottom of the stairs, his outstretched arms the only thing stopping him from smacking his face into the step. "You better share," she said, standing over Earl. He glared up at her. "You better be careful, woman." He climbed to his feet and turned to leave. Jadi punched him as hard as she could in the back of the head. "You better share with me, motherfucker!" "Stupid cunt!" Earl shouted, feeling the back of his head. Anger overwhelmed him, and he shoved her hard, right into the wall. "I don't care how much you're jonesing. You keep your fucking hands off me!" He grabbed her by the back of the head and slammed her face through the decaying plaster. He charged past her, heading for their bedroom. Jade reached out, swiping Earl's feet from under him, unmindful of the blood that poured from a cut on the crown of her head. "Think you're going to get away that easy? You need to share, motherfucker." She jumped onto his chest, clawing at his face with her nails. All right, he shouted, trying to push her off of him. "Chill out, I'll share. Just chill the fuck out." Jade settled back on the steps, thoughts of violence still fresh in her mind. "Fine," she said with barely contained rage. "I'll go clean myself up. You get the shit ready." As she stomped up the stairs, a part of her still wanted to kick Earl in the face. He sat up as she passed, angry that he had to share the little heroin he had. He looked at the fresh hole in the wall, noticing the black mold that saturated the dry wall. Earl considered it, reaching out a finger to feel it. Black powder crumbled from the hole, and inspiration hit. He scraped a bit of the powder onto his hand, heading for the living room to set up spoons. He prepped for 2 sticks, adding some of the black powder to Jade's. When she came downstairs, he stood up to give her a hug. "I'm sorry, babe. Owen gave me more than I thought. I have a spoon all ready for you." She pushed him away, eager for a spike to send her on an euphoric trip. "Thank you, baby," she said absent-mindedly as she approached their setup. She didn't even hesitate before getting to work, prepping a needleful of liquid. "God, I missed you," she whispered to it, tying a rubber tourniquet on and injecting herself. Bliss took her, and Jade sank into another world, oblivious to reality as Earl chuckled and prepped his own. "Damn it," John cursed as he slammed his knuckle into the engine block of the car he was working on. He looked at his fat friend leaning on the fender. "I really should make you pay me for all this work," he said as he shoved the bleeding knuckle into his mouth. He spoke around it as he continued. "How am I supposed to make up for the lost business from today, huh?" Joey shrugged his broad shoulders, his immense belly swaying with the movement. "Sorry, man. I wish I had any mechanical skills. I'd probably end up with spare parts after I put it back together." "I know, and I told you to quit trying to fix things after the last time." John said grumpily as he got back to work. How you get a vacuum to blow instead of suck, I'll never understand. You guys talking about the time Joey covered the living room in a quarter-inch of dirt? Peter took a swig from his beer as he looked into the garage. How you managed to keep Sarah from killing you after that? She did, the fat man replied, a grin splitting his face, just in a very fun and torturous way. Peter shook his head, ducking under the hood to look John in the eyes. Is that the advantage of not having kids? Crazy sex life? Without missing a beat, John replied, Yeah, but he misses out on the slave labor. The last was said as a grunt while he ripped the water pump from the engine. Should have brought my cherry picker, he said as he tossed the useless part on the ground. You guys want to do a barbecue tonight? Joey asked, putting the old water pump into the new one's box. Get the kids here, eat some spare ribs. Sounds good to me, Peter said as he tossed his empty beer bottle into the recycle bin. Lunch is over, gotta get back to the office. I'll catch you guys later. Later, man, be safe, Joey said as Peter left. He looked at John. Your brother's going to work himself to death. You're probably right, but that's why he's worth more than both of us put together. Earl sank into a fantasy land, a place where everything was safe and nothing could go wrong. All his fears and anxieties melted away. The shame of picking and choosing what bills to pay, the small ache of pain from starving, all of it disappeared with just one small injection. He found himself in a wondrous land. A rainbow horizon spread before him, and he watched a beautiful unicorn materialize out of thin air. Fairies danced and laughed, playing with his hair. Tables laden with food appeared before him. Everything felt perfect, the way things were meant to be. As the day wore on, the food began to go stale. Clouds appeared in the rainbow skies, and the demon of his addiction showed itself. It danced at the edge of Earl's vision, never directly in sight. From what glimpses he did get, it appeared small yet. Earl pushed it from his thoughts, choosing to enjoy the rest of his high. More time passed, and as Earl turned from laughing at the brownie's joke, he found himself staring at the demon. Though it looked like a beautiful woman, he could tell who it was. Your time is running out, Earl. You'll need to pay the toll again. Its voice was a deep guttural growl. I still have time, he replied, and the demon disappeared. Still, he couldn't help but feel heaven had been soured. The happiness and serenity that had surrounded him was gone. In its place was the need. One that ate at Earl's belly and led him to do horrible things to appease the pain. The beautiful landscape that surrounded him slowly melted into a twisted and tortured hell. The demon returned, filling the sky with its terrifying presence. Time for you to go, Earl, unless you're choosing to stay here for eternity. The demon's howling laugh chased Earl back to reality. He sat up from the couch, frantically searching around himself with a panicked look in his eyes. He settled back when he recognized his home. A loud gagging echoed through the room, coming from the downstairs bathroom. He stood and walked around the corner to see what was going on, rounding it in time to see Jade hurling her guts into the toilet bowl. Her vomit was thick, black, and smelled of death. When she finished, she turned her head and spotted him. Don't just stand there. Take me to the hospital, you dick. Earl reached down, picking her up and carrying her to the car. She threw up several more times on the way to the hospital. When they arrived, Earl ran round the passenger side and pulled Jade out. The side of his car was smeared in her black, tar-like vomit. He ran into the emergency room, carrying her to the counter. We need help. She's fucking sick, man. The receptionist behind the counter rolled his eyes before turning to the new patients. Take a seat, sir. You need to wait your turn to be assessed. After your assessment, the doctor will see you based off the nurse's triage. Here's your paperwork to fill out and the number. Listen for yours to be called. Jade muttered weakly into Earl's chest. I don't feel so good, baby. It's okay, girl. Let this man behind the counter know. Earl turned the woman in his arms towards the receptionist. Jade lost it, projectile vomiting all over the man's face and into his mouth. I guess you can tell them she's pretty bad. A nurse's aide came, taking Jade from his arms and placing her into a wheelchair. They wheeled her into the back, leaving Earl standing there dumbly. The woman who took the unlucky man's space snapped her fingers to catch Earl's attention. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to sit down, please. He looked to where she pointed, stumbling over to fall into his seat. He could see the demon in the corner, grinning at him with a predatory smile. As time passed, it grew more and more sinister, until hours later, Earl was chased from the hospital in search of his next fix. Joey swung down with the splitting awl, chopping at a large log. The rotund man stooped down, picking up the wood and preparing to carry it to the house. He was chopping wood for the fireplace, happy to have friends and family in his house. Everyone was there. John had even managed to get his son, Jekyll, for the weekend. As he gathered the logs to carry inside, Joey watched Talia drag Peter from the house. "What are we doing here?" she asked, her tone full of anger. "You know I hate your old high school friends, and your brother is barely tolerable." Her speech was slightly slurred, and Joey could all but smell the alcohol on her breath from where he stood 20 feet away. He stayed quiet, trying not to draw attention to himself. Talia continued to rip into Peter, and Sarah doesn't even realize that Joey does nothing but use her like a servant. I mean, it's like she likes being a rug. Joey fought hard to restrain himself. He hated when people talked about his wife in a negative way. "Can we just fucking leave already?" Peter finally spoke up. "Do you really have to ruin everyone's fun? Lori and Rachel are having fun. Why can't you?" "Their internet connection sucks up here," Talia replied loudly. "I can't even download a movie off of Netflix." "Fine. We were supposed to stay a couple of days to spend time with people I call family. Get away from the city and spend time with the family, which you say you want. But I know they don't want to deal with the drama you'll cause, so we'll go. You can tell the girls why we had to leave early." Peter slammed the door behind himself as he stormed into the home. A moment later, Talia snuck in after him. Joey just shook his head, thanking whatever powers that be that he had a good woman.
Music by Kevin MacLeod.
You're listening to Big World Network.